Welcome to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Body. Guess what? That's me. This is a podcast that celebrates artists and advocates for community engagement. And like you, I'm home. And so we are launching a new video cast called Keep Making Art. And in that, we are partnering with Creative Generation. And we are showcasing creatives, all the creative people that I can find, and I'm looking for all of them. We are showcasing them, people who are making beautiful art and sharing that art, or they're guiding other people to make and create and share their own art. And so I just want to say, hey, if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's plenty of beautiful episodes there where I make many, many mistakes on this low budget, low tech show. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So why don't we get straight to our guest today, Lauren Sharpe. Hi, Lauren.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Welcome. How you doing? How are you doing in this time of COVID-19, eh?
This strange time is strange. My family and I are okay. We're at home. We are distance learning and learning how to be together. Our apartment is small, but we are managing and everybody's healthy. So that's about all I think I can hope for on a baseline level. Yeah.
Yeah, and today we learned that New York City public schools are closed, and you've got to, what grade are they in now?
I have six-year-olds in first grade.
Yeah,
who will
they
not finish their first grade year, but at home. Yeah. So that's
so
feeling.
how you feeling about that announcement?
I'm sad. I think the first announcement of the first shutdown was harder. I think partially because I think the timing of everything and just the acute kind of like the acuteness of the moment was really challenging. I just always feel the reverberations beyond my household and how much I know it's going to affect so many kids that I don't know and families that I don't know and some that I do know and have worked with for years. And I think about those people a lot.
Yeah, I mean, in thinking about it, since you have 6-year-olds, and we know that in like early childhood education, like relationship building is actually a part of learning. And the fact that they're not able to be around their classmates, their peers, their teachers, all those relationships are, only through this kind of platform. That's something that I'm starting to think about. I mean, I kind of anticipated this, but I don't know if I was thinking maybe from a technical level as opposed to an interpersonal level. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been a challenge to navigate. Obviously, we have two different classes. They're twins, but they're in two different classes. So they have two different teachers, and each one is navigating in their way. And some things are easier in one way, and some things are challenging in another way. And then now we have this challenge of how to meet virtually in a safe space. And but I think what's been fun to see is, and it's really weird to fast forward to, I can see them as like teenagers walking around the room, like they have buddies. So they have people that they're checking in with like one-on-one from their class. So like they have like their little, I know. So they're like walking around, like giving a tour of their house and things that like like effectively like a virtual play date, but like this one's like up in her top bunk, like gabbing with her friend and like being like, no, mommy, don't come in here. Like,
oh,
I don't know. There's elements of delight, but overall it's really challenging to think about that aspect. And I think I felt deeply saddened because I really love our school and I love going there. I love the environment. I love the teachers and the staff, and the administration is so wonderful. And so when we were able to choose what school, which there was a little bit of a choice making happening there, I picked this one because I wanted to be there, not just because I wanted my kids to be there, because I felt like I could be there and be welcomed, and that felt like it's a really special place. And so shout out to PS 261 in Brooklyn, because I love you.
Yes, 261. They're also a partner of the New Victory, and so we now have to figure out what can we do, what can we offer, knowing that now that we know for sure, we definitely been brainstorming, and making some plans with like a unknown timeline. So
Yeah.
now maybe those can get more concretized, but it is something for me to think about too, because I don't have kids of my own, but I do have 40,000 to think about.
A lot of kids.
Yeah.
I mean, twins is hard, but 40,000 is a lot more.
So that's something for me to think about.
Yeah.
But I want to move us forward a little bit. And thank you for sharing all that about your family and your kids. So how do you identify as an artist?
Primarily in this moment time, I think of myself as a performing artist of many different disciplines. I grew up as a very serious ballet dancer. I have had forays into improv and comedy and clown and physical theater. And so often all of these things play into the work that I make and do. These days I've been more in the theater for young audiences, River, and working with a few different theaters to make work for the very young and also for the not as young. And what I love to do is collaborate and devise original pieces of theater. Aside from that, I also have been working on writing over the past few years, and something that I think has been dormant in my life. But and then that's what this time has sort of brought out, a way to kind of connect in a way that doesn't require being in the room. So that's where my angle has gone lately. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen some of your work. And are you thinking about how, like, are you in the process of sorry, in December, I went and saw a festival of shows, an up close festival at the Archive building on Christopher Street. And there was a sweet piece. What was the name of it that you did?
Our piece was called Sanctuary Garden.
Sanctuary Garden. And it was about, like, all the pieces were about that area. And yours is that Sanctuary Garden as part of attached to the church.
Yeah, St.
I don't
Luke's.
know the name of it. St. Luke's. And so I'm just curious if you're making any other pieces of art, and what does that mean in this time of COVID-19?
Yeah, I think one of the first things that got me really, I have such a softness for that time, and it's so different and distinct how you go from like, wow, I just made a piece of like community theater which required like tons of people in the room, lots of hands-on like touch and community work, and everyone working on the same piece. Our piece was sort of literally anchored by a rug that was made by hand by the audience members and fellow performers. So going from like this reality of like, that's such a beautiful and community centric and in the room and in the space and with each other moment, to the now, had to do some big crying about that, just like I do every day. But I feel like I don't yet know like how something like that can translate into a virtual realm or into some kind of connected thread to each other. So I think that's why I felt the urge to start to work on writing as a medium for sharing my feelings and sharing my words. And it's something that I often write into a vacuum, I've been saying. And like, I have so many Google Docs. I have a manuscript that's almost 25,000, 30,000 words, but it sits there. And this was a moment I was like, wow, nothing matters. I'm going to go ahead and share it. I don't care what people think. I mean, obviously what people think, but it was more important for me to process and real time the things that are happening inside my house, which is sort of in this particular lens, but that is sort of where my creativity and the ritual of sitting down to do that every day has been a little bit of an anchor in a really rough sea time.
Yeah, I hear that. And I know that other people take solace in your writing. I started to say blog, but I wasn't sure if you call it that.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, I think. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so what has been the response? Because I noticed that you shared. I did read some of them. I read your latest deeply, which resonated for me because I have a sister who it lives in Queens. So the only way for us to connect is through platforms like this. And it's actually, it works for us.
Good. That's so good. Yeah, I
Emotions
find
in
it.
a relationship. So it's actually like having to be technical, I think actually helps us a little bit.
That's good. So, sometimes you need a little box to put things in. Yeah, I think it's been really exciting, and it's what's been really sweet is like I have not been a big social media sharer, especially on like Facebook. And I decided that I was going to share it on like every single platform for fun, because I was like, all right, let's just do this and see what happens. And I feel like it's been beautiful to hear from voices and people that I know and haven't maybe seen for 20 years, people who I've worked with in the past and that are just sharing and showing that it resonates with them. And it's really, I think, yeah, it's like funny what a little comment can do, right? To just be like, wow, okay, someone is hearing me and I'm not alone, which is, I think that's storytelling, right? You're just like, hi, we're all together. And this is something like, I don't know, it's so weird because I've been like playing with this theme of interconnectedness. Like, I think that's been part of like my lens for the past few years. And so this kind of moment, which proves in such a painful way, like how interconnected we all are, like that this is it. Like you think you're separate from something, from the person that's delivering your packages, from the cardboard where it came from, like it's all connected and it's all interwoven. And if you have a hard time realizing that, then you might have a hard time recognizing how important it is to share stories or make art and live in the world and be a human being to each other. Yeah, I think I remember we did a professional development with a person from Australia, the performer who came and did, she does the work with Small Voices Louder, and she had asked us to think of the one thing we would want to share about the universe. Like if we had to say what, it was like, just write it on, we had the big butcher paper out. And I was like, this is like 2 years ago, I was like, that everything is interconnected, that there's no separation. So that has been something that's like, okay, I have to share because every little ripple does something. And I don't know, I think there's power in that. And in a time that can feel really, really, feels really powerless to be like, I'm just here, like sitting in my house.
Totally. I totally hear like literally everything that you're saying. I've thought myself, like the interconnectedness is a huge piece. I feel like where I was starting to get that was when we started working with Ty years ago. And then this idea of like what can I do in the midst of any moment, but in this particular moment when one can feel quite powerless and feeling like the way I'm helping society is by staying at home and like hanging out on my couch. Well, that's not going to work. The couch part is not going to work for me, but I understand. I will do what I need to do to help others. I will protect myself. And by protecting myself, I'm protecting others, right? But this idea of like ripples, for me, it's like I'm very inspired by a speech that Robert Kennedy did in South Africa. And in it, he talks about the ripples of hope, and that when one person does something and another person, that actually creates a wave to break down walls. I'm really paraphrasing, but like that's basically what it is. And so that's been, for me, for the last few years, that's been a very clear anchor for me about how I approach almost everything. And it's starting to permeate like even my very small, not small, but like the one-to-one interpersonal relationships that I have, including a relationship with my sister, which is my like favorite and worst relationship. It's like, it's a treasure burden. It's hard. It's all hard. Like family's hard, but they're your family, and you gotta do all the things that you can. So thinking about, to protect them, to love them, to care for them, all those things. And so that for me, when there's so much to be angry about and furious about it, and to live in that sort of energy space is really detrimental, because again, it goes back to then it affects those one-on-one relationships.
Yeah.
So if
That's
I'm
right.
thinking like, let me come from this, and it's really helped me from a health point of view, from a mental health point of view, from, so in a small way it's selfish, but in a large way it actually creates something else that you're talking about, those ripples.
Mm.
And that
Yeah,
is something that I'm very interested in. So I really appreciate what you just said.
thanks. I think it's really, if you never share it, it just sits there. And I don't know. And it also what you're saying too, it's like, the action that we're being asked to take is to not do something, which is like really hard and
Mhm.
feels really like negative spacey. So it's hard to just sit in that and be like, what I'm not doing is helping. So I think, yeah, any art making that's happening, it's because of that desire to just be like, I am not doing, but I'm also like saying, this is the little bit that I can manage and the little
Yeah.
bit I can do publicly, when we're so private right now and interior.
Well, do you want to share?
Sure, I will read a little bit of something that I wrote. And also, when I first began writing, I was like, I kind of threw out this caveat. I was like, I am not trying for perfection or even like, anything close to it. I'm not editing. I'm not thinking about the right perfect word. I'm not retooling. It's like, this is it. So
Yeah.
but it is what it is. And that's what it is. But I'll read from a post from like last week. What's a week? What's a day? Who
Who
knows?
knows? What's it
Um,
called?
the post is called People Look, But No One Ever Finds It. And I'll start a little bit further down. A package arrived today containing Tylenol, wet wipes, and a small bunch of pussy willows and lavender. Thank you. At home, I could hear Brendan opening the box and telling the girls to take it to me, seated on the couch, distantly learning how to teach something. I opened up the bundle, I smiled, and I put my face directly into it. I inhaled deeply and then burst into tears. Where is outside anymore? I'm so very sad about this loss today, one that I picked out of a field of so many other losses. Later, outside for a moment, I wanted to hug a tree, but my sister, standing 8 feet away from me, told me not to, so I put the sole of one shoe onto it and I leaned back like the most awkward senior picture for a school year without a graduation. I predicted that one. I used to, a couple of months ago, volunteer at a hospital in the city. This was separate from my other hospital work, and each year for my medical clearance, it would be required that I take a respirator fit test using an N95 mask. I'm a size small. During the test, which to me always seemed a bit like a bizarre performance art task and or good modern dance, the person administering it asks you to do a variety of tasks. You move your head slowly up and down, you nod, slowly nod up and down, move your head slowly side to side, deep breathing, normal breathing, and speaking. The text they ask you to recite is printed on a piece of paper, taped to the wall at eye level in front of them, and here is that text. When the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act like a prism and form a rainbow. The rainbow is a division of white light into many beautiful colors. These take the shape of a long round arch with its path high above and its two ends apparently beyond the horizon. There is, according to legend, a boiling pot of gold at one end. People look, but no one ever finds it. When a man looks for something beyond reach, his friends say he is looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I don't have to look all that far. There are rainbows all over the place if you have the right map.
Oh,
I did not write that text. That is the actual text I was able to find online for the N95 respirator fit test, but it is about rainbows. And as you may know, this huge rainbow project, which began in my neighborhood of crazy little Carroll Gardens, Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, fancy town, people began to put rainbows up in their windows. And a friend on my Facebook group was skilled enough to make a live map. And now you can visit that quarantine rainbow map. It's pretty Googleable because it's been now in a lot of news articles, and you can see how it's gone global. And so
wow.
when you walk in the neighborhood, and I think a lot of neighborhoods, you can look up and find the rainbows as you walk. And I take a picture of every new one that I see. So rainbows.
I love it. Oh, rainbows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Aw.
No.
Um, well, thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
of course.
And where could, if one wanted to follow or figure out how to read these little nuggets of inspiration slash, reality,
Yeah.
where could they find it?
You can go through my website, which is just laurensharpe.com. And if you click around, there's a little link that says writing, I think. It's on Medium, the platform, which is pretty and tidy and seems pretty easy to use. So that's where I can be found. Yeah.
Cool. So as we're winding down,
Mm-hmm.
um, before we started recording offline, we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about the federal work. What is it called? The Federal Workers Project, right?
Yeah, I think it was WPA, but I can't remember what
WPA.
the acronym, stands exactly for.
WPA. Forget
Workers
what the A
Project.
stands for.
Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah.
We can look it up and
That
say
cool
this
thing.
properly. But that cool thing that came out of rebuilding the nation after the Great Depression,
Mm-hmm.
and it really utilized artists. And so I'm curious. I've been asking most of the guests this question around how artists can be activated during this time, and if we are really good, there will be some paradigm shifts that will happen coming out of this. So I'm also interested in that and how artists can be engaged, activated, leading, etc.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I think my thoughts are like tiny little seeds that are being planted of wanting the reality of what's happening and the social justice element, and that must, I think, be kind of like the guiding force going forward. I think you should get artists, obviously not in a room, but in a virtual room. I think the thoughts and the ideas around how to care for and be stewards of the whatever this new post or continuing post-virus world will be is essential. I think about the work of Up Close and a work of Ty, who we worked with alongside in that piece as well, and how we can think about who we're talking to, make sure that we're hearing from so many different artistic voices. I don't know how to do it, but I feel like there's something so unique that working artists bring to the table in terms of like the way that they're able to break open the framework of something and create something brand new. I mean, I think it's hard not to think politically, so I feel like that's going to be a part of it as well. But I think, I just think starting to, I'm getting now the urge to like reconnect with certain people who help me make art and figure out like, not just like how to create more content. Like, I think there's plenty to see and do and all kinds of beautiful things happening where theater companies are sharing their entire shows, which is beautiful, and operas and everything is accessible. And I think that is the way forward. But I also wonder what can be created that's not screen work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm resistant to always screen work because I just, so I don't know what that is that's safe and feels appropriate for the time, but I think that people like me could figure it out.
I agree with that. And I was saying this to, I think it was to a colleague on a social distance date, a walking date, or we were like talking outside on the sidewalk chats.
Mm-hmm.
Sidewalk chats, like Courtney and Ray. Those are funny. But we were talking about how some people don't necessarily have spatial awareness. And so how could we actually engage in this moment when people are still not quite understanding what 6 feet apart means?
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, physically. And so could we engage some choreographers who understand how to carve out space, who like use formations, who could create some PSAs to help people understand. So like the other day I saw in the Prospect Park, which I haven't gone to, I saw somebody posting that they were by like the lake and there was Canadian geese, and I was like, what's it like in there? What's happening? And she was like, yeah, people are clumping because they know each other, but then they're distanced from other people. And I was like, okay. But then there was this other image of when like in an entry where people were like, stay, like there was like a finish line situation where like, and it said, this is how far apart you need to be. I was like, yes, but like, I don't feel like the political people or like these press conferences, they're not focused there, right? They're giving us lots of information. They're giving us lots of statistics and facts, which is good. That's different than the president, but like, but this like very fundamental thing, to me, that's a place where artists can support.
Yeah, a dance teacher
there are other like if we're thinking on the
that in like 5 different ways for different learners. Like that is a real thing. Some people don't count 8s. Some people count ba ba ba. Some people don't
know ba or ready set go or whatever.
Yeah.
Or thinking colors, whatever it is. Like let's help people so that we're all in this together and we know what we're doing in this together. That's a simple thing. And then I think you're right. Like let's get on some Zoom chats and start to map out some plans for what life looks like outside of staying at home and helping and supporting and growing together to make a better society.
I'm in.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I didn't really mention that we know each other because you are a teaching artist at the New Victory, but I feel like, you and I have really like, we have a lot of things in common, but we don't talk as much as I think we do with maybe Lindsay, which is fine. But like, I always enjoy chatting with you. And one of my favorite curriculum development teams was with you after you were so inspired by that artist in Australia. I think her name is Alex.
Yes, thank you.
And we were working on a show, content for a show that was about giving kids agency. And it was such a cool goal to try and figure out how do we design a lesson plan that literally gives the kids all the agency, but in a way that a classroom teacher won't freak out.
Yeah.
And you drove that so hard, and I was like, I'm into it. I love everything. I love everything about it. And that piece of work, like we got so much positive feedback about that workshops. And it was a shame because it was like 8 workshops. We just think that they hit a lot of kids because the show had such a tiny capacity.
It's true. And it required so much of like trust from like teaching artists too, to be like, all right, we're going to do this thing where the lesson plan is actually kind of not knowing. Sorry, guys.
But in this time when we're like, you don't know, like what a great thing to think about is like, how do we create a framework where we don't know, but that we can go with the flow. We can go with and it's that the anchor is about agency. If you have that as the anchor and it's art-based, we should use that as a metaphor for everything.
I agree.
Oh crap, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's remember that.
Agency, start there. Lock it in.
Lock it in. All right. So thank you so much, Lauren, for being a guest on this show.
Thank you for having me.
And for all of you watching, thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe if you're a podcast listener. Subscribe to us on SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, and tell your peeps about what's happening here. And remember to keep making